Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel and the World Class Championship Wrestling Review Series. We are in the end of November 1984. November 24th, 1984 is today's episode. 4 first-run segments, 4 matches as your highlight, including a World Championship match with Chris Adams and Ric Flair. But before we get there, Kelly Kiniski, Iceman King Parsons. Parsons, obviously a perennial guy here in the world-class area. Parsons with some easy monkey flips and arm bars, arm drags, and the like. Parsons probably one of the biggest stars in the area that is not named Von Erich and was not a Freebird. Needless to say, there is an alliance for Kiniski, but we'll get to that in the weeks to come. Needless to say, too, Parsons is a guy who always has good fire upon coming back. This particular week, note different. And he fights his way back up from being power dominated. I would say Kiniski has the power advantage. Speed advantage goes to Parsons by far. Also, strike advantage would go to Parsons too, in theory at least. Bear hug, they got at least 60 seconds out of a bear hug, which is surprising from Kiniski because I don't know that I've ever seen him use much of one. Anyway, Kiniski tries to fire back, tries to get things going in his general direction, and goes back to the bear hug. Parsons, former tag team champion by this point, and certainly a guy that the fans love. Interested to see his heel turn when it comes. Gotta know it's coming. Maybe it's a year or two away, who knows. But I gotta know it's coming because he's been a babyface almost the entire time here. Anyway, sunset flip attempt, only a 1 count there for Parsons, and then we see a big body slam by Kiniski. Kiniski only gets a 1 count on that, not even a 1 count, probably a half a count. Short knee by Parsons into the midsection. Doesn't get all he wants on that, but a toss over the top rope while the referee is distracted. But Parsons slides back in, gets a roll up, and a 1, 2, 3 count, and Parsons gets your victory here. Needless to say, we see a jumping by Jake Roberts on Iceman King Parsons, setting up an angle between those two. DDT by Jake. Then we move to the second match of the day, and that is El Diablo and Dale Vestry. Vestry new to the area versus the Fantastics. Fantastics have not yet found their stride as a team in terms of in the area yet, but they're working on that. We have seen Diablo a couple of times. He at least has one victory that I can recall, so not a complete enhancement talent. Anyway, the Vestry looks to be a big, brawny-looking fellow. Tag off by the Fantastics early. Lots of double-team maneuvers there, working over the arm, working over the body. Obviously, Fulton and Rogers are a mainstay team together. They don't hit their real stride here in World Class. They're only here for some months. But still, they do the best they can with what they're given. And they do show a good bit of tag team acumen. The heels of Diablo and Vestry cutting off the ring relatively simplistically during the early or mid stages of the match, per se. And that breaks down a little further than I think many people would like in terms of the pacing of the match, but it is what it is. The Fantastics are cut off from the ring much longer than they anticipated to be. I think match goes a little longer than it needs to, with the sense of, the world champion on the card. I would have given Flair and Adams 30-plus minutes, but that's just me. I know that the psychology of longer matches not particularly as necessary here as in other places, but a hot tag by the Fantastics Tommy Rogers off the top rope with a splash. He gets a victory here for his team, and we move into match number 3 on a 4-match card. Jake Roberts, Buck Zumhoff, who is returning after being away for a few weeks anyway. But not good to draw Jake Roberts as your comeback guy. Roberts with some shots under the chin of Zumhoff, trying to break him down as simply as possible. Also explains the attack on Iceman King Parsons earlier. A fire up by Zumhoff, and the crowd is behind him, although not as animated as they would be for Parsons, I don't think. I think of the team, Parsons was more over than Zumhoff in Texas. Of course, he's been there longer. That may have a lot to do with it. Long time just back and forth with the headlock by Zumhoff on Roberts. Roberts does get a short shot on him and then sends him into the ropes, tries to gets the kick to the midsection, breaks the match down a little bit slower. Roberts always tends to like to move slower, and single shots, single punches sends Zumhoff loopy at least for a moment, but able to fire back with a second one. And, Jake Roberts doesn't need to be reminded how good he is. Does the, I guess you'd say, draping suplex over the middle rope, and 1, 2, and 3 gets the win after the draping suplex. Not using the DDT every match is Jake here in 1984. We then are given about 13 or so minutes, probably a little less, of Ric Flair versus Chris Adams. Adams and Hart have been campaigning for this for at least a couple of months now. Adams has been a mainstay in the area, and so would have earned this shot. Flair, obviously a multi-time world champion, referee giving instructions. Gary Hart encouraging his man verbally and non-verbally. Flair, very deliberate, not going full all out, full bore in the early stages, strutting around as you would expect. Treat for the Sportatorium to get Flair, usually Flair reserved for main stadium style. Flair literally gets about 3 minutes out of just walking and talking, which to me is phenomenal. I know a lot of people that are more action-based criticize Flair nowadays for, he did the same thing over and over. Well, it worked at the time. I still think that a more walk and talk style can work today. Lots of people disagree. I'd love to try it out as a promoter sometime, and I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is when I have the money. Anyway, hammerlock for several minutes by Adams, and really is out wrestling Flair, even if he's cheating along the way to use the ropes if he needs it. Knee drop by Flair after a snapmare gets things kind of going more his way, and Flair finds himself up in a hammerlock yet again. And I mean, they get a lot out of this hammerlock. They used that for several minutes, which, again, only guys that can really work can do that. Hip toss out of the corner, Flair begging off. Flair begs off quite well. Probably one of the better things Flair does is beg off. Into the armbar. Adams has actually dominated more of the match on the mat than the champion has. And working over the arm. The arm of Flair has been a main focus throughout the match. Flair, oddly enough, in about 90 seconds later with a airplane spin as a spot to get things going back in his general direction. Also, a minute or two later, tosses Adams to the outside. Adams lands on his feet. Flair trying to create any distance he can. It really does look like, at least for moments of this match, that there could be a championship shift, which is what the NWA champion was all about. Make the hometown guy look like he could win it, even if there's no chance of it happening, and that's not the plan. If you can make it look like it, it'll help houses in the future. And so Adams goes at him quite easily there. Crossbody onto the referee. The referee is in the way, and that is the main thing that costs Adams the victory. Adams with the kickoff into the Boston Crab by Flair. Flair, it's odd to see Flair with a Boston Crab. Anyway, Gary Hart comes in, takes his shoe off, whips Flair with it. Hart lays Flair out and starts beating him down. Obviously, this leads to a disqualification. The referee not standing for that, but needless to say, Gary Hart, he cost his own man, but the continuation of the beatdown on Flair continues. I would assume somewhere down the line, I'm not that far yet, but I would assume somewhere down the line, Flair and Adams go at it again, but that'll close November of 1984 here in World Class. Keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Till next time, everybody.